Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshulmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Hanupetya Apetya Krityam Vapaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaivanarottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptastakamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we're going to continue hearing the extraordinary Madhurya Kadambini, composed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. We are in the second shower of nectar, discussing the first three stages of Vaidhi Bhakti, right? And we have been hearing about the various 6 stages of Anishtata Bhakti, right? We started out with Shraddha, right? And we talked about Sadhu Sangha, Sadhus, Guru, etc. And after gaining faith in Sri Guru and becoming initiated under the guidance and direction of Sri Guru, one begins the process of devotional activity, bhajana kriya, right? So there are 2 types. There's steady bhakti and unsteady bhakti. And in the beginning stages, our bhakti is unsteady. So there are 6 different stages of unsteady bhakti. And that was, quite a bit back, but I'm just going to recite them again because it's good to know them, right? So, first one, Utsahamayi, where you're filled with enthusiasm, the overconfidence of the beginner. Oh, my path is clear. I remember when I graduated from 6th grade, right? Since we had a little touch of all different kinds of knowledge and we had a big ceremony, I was thinking, I know just about all there is to know. I remember telling a friend of mine. And he looked at me, Mark Hyman. Yeah, Mark Hyman. Whatever happened to him? Anyway, I ran into him once on Sankirtan, old elementary school buddy. Anyway, this kind of enthusiasm is feeble and short-lived, right? The roaring enthusiasm of the complete neophyte. That will mature into Gana Tarala, thick and thin, where sometimes your devotion is very thick and sometimes very thin, right? We have good days, we have bad days, right? Gana Tarala. Then 3, Vyudha Vikalpa, indecisiveness resulting from contemplating a diversity of alternatives, doubts constantly assailing one, right? Remember we heard the dialogues in the mind of this bhakta. Oh, should I get married? Should I not get married? And then using, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? And all kinds of scriptural examples to justify whatever decision is, whatever path they're feeling like taking at that point. That's why it's so important at this stage in particular, when your knowledge is feeble, your practice is still beginning, you definitely have to remain in very strong, good association and anugatya, under guidance. Because if you have to depend on the mind to give you direction, oh my goodness, what will you come up with? Constantly, oh, I should do this, oh, I should do that. So, number 4, Vishaya Sangara, the battle with desire for worldly sense objects and temptations. Because as long as we have a material body, we're going to be assailed by different kinds of desires, gross and subtle, right? But in the beginning stages, the desires have much more sway over us. And sometimes we can follow and sometimes we can't. So it's not just the sense gratification, but it's also the desires that exist within the mind, right? And it always creates, until you become fixed in bhakti and have a very strong taste in that area, the allure of material pleasure is going to be calling to you. Oh, if I had this, I could be happy. Oh, if I had that, I could be happy. Whenever I'm driving in my little RV, I'm always thinking like that. Oh, God, if I had a newer one, and I'd have all these problems. Oh, if it looked like this. Oh, if it looked like that. But you're never satisfied. You can have a fleet of RVs, a different one for every day of the year. You'll never be satisfied. And you can see people that are very wealthy, they have so many things, and they're always acquiring more, right? Because that taste is short-lived. So then we're going to come to this today, niyamakshama, the inability to uphold vows. And then number 6 is Taranga Rangini, delighting in the mundane benefits afforded by bhakti. And at some point, I think we should kind of review this whole chapter. There's so many extraordinary shlokas in this chapter, which is so good for us. Okay, so in this chapter, the text is numbered 10, the 5th of these symptoms of unsteady bhakti. Niyama akshama. Niyama is like the vow, right? So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, make this a little bigger. There we go. Whoops. Here we go. Next, the stage of Niyama Akshama is described. At this stage, the sadhak makes vows of this sort. Oh yeah, I'm remembering this. We've all done this. From this day onward, I will chant the holy name this number of times. Each day, I will offer this number of prostrated obeisance to Bhagavan, his associates, his pastime places, and the Vaishnavas. I will perform service to Bhagavan and the devotees in this specific manner. I will not speak even one word that is not related to Bhagavan, and I will completely relinquish the association of persons who indulge in mundane talk. In this way, he makes these promises every day, again and again, but is unable to keep them for long. Has this happened to you? Anybody had this experience? This is not just you. I mean, you may feel very low and fallen and incapable, unworthy, but this is the stage we have to go through, right? And actually, this sentiment exists in the heart even of great devotees, right? This self-examination of one's, failure, one's incompleteness to do seva. So this is all progressive, right? Not that great devotees have any shortcoming, but because of humility and urgent desire to just do unlimited, ongoing seva, they feel like that, right? So in this way, he makes these promises every day, again and again, but is unable to keep them for long. Therefore, this stage of the sadhak's development is called niyama akshama, or the inability to maintain one's vows. The difference between Vishaya Sangara, in other words, the battle with the sense objects, and Niyamakshama is that in Vishaya Sangara, the sadhak is unable to completely renounce material sense enjoyment. And in Niyama Akshama, he is unable to excel in sadhana or improve his performance of the practices of bhakti. So there's a subtle difference there, right? The difference between Vishaya Sangara and Niyamakshama is that in Vishaya Sangara, right, distracted and waylaid by material sense desires and the objects of the senses, in that, the sadhak is unable to completely renounce material sense enjoyment. Right? So you're mixed, right? You're very mixed bhakti, sometimes being distracted by worldly pleasures, worldly pursuits, right? And in Niyamakshama, he is unable to excel in sadhana or improve his performance of the practices of bhakti. Right, so you've reached a stage where you're making some significant progress, right? You're getting a handle on your control of the senses and keeping at bay these worldly desires to some extent. Remember, this is still very early on. This is before Nishta even, right? But something, as you mature, is coming. But then, when you want to make further progress and become really fixed, and you say, oh, now I'm going to do this. I'm going to increase my rounds. Every day, I'll chant not just 16, I'll chant 32 or 48 or 64. I will read this much every day. I will listen to recordings of classes and our acharyas. There's so many things, but we don't do it, or we do some but not everything. We're kind of blocked going to that next stage, moving into that powerful stage of nishta. So, unable to improve the performance. Now, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj explains, at this stage, when one's faith and devotional practice has increased, the sadhak realizes the necessity of following the rules and regulations of devotional practice, sadhana and bhakti. However, because of his attachment to sense objects, it's not been destroyed, and because the pull of his worldly needs is stronger than the pull of bhakti, he is unable to properly maintain the regulative practices of bhakti. That's why it's anishtata, right? It's not steady. The only reason for this is his inability to taste rasa in bhajan. If the sadhak were to relish in his heart even a minute particle of the nectar of Bhagavan's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes, his absorption in various worldly pursuits would cease, and it would be impossible for him to abandon the regulative practices of bhajan. What is that? Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam. What is it? Rasavajam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. That one who tries to give up material sense objects, Krishna says, but still has a taste for them, or makes a show of giving them up, but still has a taste, is not really situated. But one who can give them up by experiencing a higher taste, param drishtva nivartate, that person is properly situated, right? So, inability to taste rasa in bhajan. If the sadhak were to relish in his heart even a minute particle of the nectar of Bhagavan's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes, his absorption in various worldly pursuits would cease, and it would be impossible for him to abandon the regulative practices of bhajan. The analogy may be given of a little boy who bites into sugar cane and relishes its sweetness on his tongue, and then finds sugar cane impossible to relinquish. Likewise, once a sadhak has experienced the sweet taste of bhajan, it is impossible for him to give up the regulative principles of bhajan. So that's what we're trying to do. The sweet taste of bhajan, what is that? That's ruchi. And when we're in nishtata bhakti, something of ruchi may come down and taste us. And certainly anyone who's been in the direct association of a great Mahabhagavat, in their presence, hearing them chant, hearing them speak, one does in fact feel an upwelling in the heart, a conviction, a joy, happiness in being in that presence and being in that state of consciousness. Again, even though that's just a taste, it's so extraordinary, and you feel such a sense of joy and gratitude. And in your heart, you're thinking, I just want this forever, right? And, you vow at that time, I'm going to be the best devotee, the best servant of my guru that I can be, right? But that comes and goes. That's why it's so important to be in association of devotees, high-class devotees, but also devotees' peers who are similarly engaged like you. But you want to be in association of people that will encourage you. You don't want to be in the association of lax or let's just say unsteady devotees. The saying, water seeks its own level, right? So association oftentimes, bhakti the bhakta seeks their own level of association. I know that when I was, in my whole devotional history, different times being very comfortable in the company of different kinds of persons, right? I remember when I first joined, we had a big temple and, so many brahmacharis. And guests would come, hippies and this and that. And in the early days, being comfortable just sitting with the hippies, talking about this and that, and a little bit of bhakti, but no realization, no real understanding. But then later, as we progress and do seva, then, lesser kind of company is not so agreeable, and you're always seeking higher and higher association. And so that can also be one of the symptoms that you can use to self-analyze. Who do I like to be around? Who do I like to associate with? Right? What kind of things do I like to watch and hear and study? Because our senses are always trying to be engaged, right? Where do I take my pleasure? So a sadhak, once they've experienced the sweet taste of bhajan, impossible to give up the regulative principles of bhajan. In this stage of niyamakshama, the sadhak vows to chant the holy name 100,000 times, 1 lakh daily. Offer 1,008 prostrated obeisance to Sri Vishnu and the Vaishnavas, and serve the Vaishnavas in a regulated manner. In fact, he vows to not engage in any discussion not pertaining to the pastimes of the Lord. And he vows to completely abandon the company of those who speak of material enjoyment and criticize or gossip about others. Right. Thus, despite making such resolutions repeatedly each day, the sadhak is unable to uphold them when it comes time to put them into practice. For this reason, this stage has been called niyamakshama, or the inability to maintain or improve one's devotional practices as per one's resolutions. In the previous stage, Vishaya Sangara, the practitioner resolves to renounce material sense enjoyment. But when the time comes to do so, he cannot. In the stage of niyamakshama, even though he tries to uphold his vows or self-imposed rules in an effort to further his devotion and improve his devotional standard, he is unable to do so. See, these are subtle steps in your own personal progress, right? But does that mean we shouldn't make these vows or shouldn't make the attempt? No, we should certainly make the attempt. But one thing is that oftentimes when we're doing this, what are we depending on? We're depending on our own strong will, our own strength, our own intellect, right? We still have this quality of Purush Bhav. We think that we're the controller. And, to some really teeny-weeny little extent, we have the quality of Purush because Krishna is the Purush and he created us. God created man in his own image and women and everybody else. But very slight. But really, our use of control is to put ourselves in harmony and under guidance. First with Sri Guru, who is completely aligned with Sri Krishna, and then we become aligned, right? And so, if we make these vows, we make the vows as a prayer to our Guru and our Acharyas and Nityananda Prabhu and the associates of Mahaprabhu. Please give me your blessings. Fill me with strength. And then we also have to go through the very difficult effort of using our own will, what Purush we have, to overcome, to resist these urges. Remember, we always have this story during the month of Kartik about the Damodar Leela, where Mother Yashoda bound Krishna to the mortar. There are many different levels of instruction, but one of the simplest is that the mortar, simple but profound, was that the rope that she was trying to tie him with was always 2 fingers too short. Why? Because Krishna did not want to be bound. He wanted to do something else. He wanted to go play with his friends, right? He didn't want to be bound. And Mother Yashoda, he wanted to taste the love of his friends, right? But Mother Yashoda, as his mother, wanted to bind him for his well-being, so that he would understand that lying, breaking the mortar, feeding the monkeys, all this is bad. And his threat to run away into the forest. No, he'll become a dacoit, a rogue. She was completely concerned about him and as an ordinary child, right? I must bind him. I must. But she kept trying and trying. But his determination, I don't want to be bound. So Jogamaya, Leela Shakti, arranged that this rope would always be 2 fingers too short, no matter how much they added. And nobody could believe it. Nobody could understand how is this possible. They're seeing it with their own eyes, but you can't digest that. It's just impossible. How is this happening? So finally, after hours and hours, she was praying to their Ishtadev, their household deity, Lord Narayan. The Brajbasis, they believe Lord Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not Krishna. Krishna's their son, their friend, their beloved. So therefore, we never get into arguments with people that don't understand the position of Krishna. As Swayam Bhagavan, they worship, Lakshmi Narayan. No problem. The Brajbasis worship Lakshmi Narayan as well. So why get into the argument? Any rate, she's praying to Lord Narayan, please let me bind my son. And she prayed in different ways. Oh, I'll be humiliated in front of my friends. In other words, I'm not a good mother. It's an expression of Vatsalya Prem, very high transformation. And also, if I can't bind him, what will happen to my son? And finally, her desire was so strong. Desire, what does that mean? Her love, her Vatsalya Prem reached such a peak that Krishna agreed to be bound. He became controlled by that, right? And he became bound. So we also, if Mother Yashoda is showing that she has to make an effort, what to speak of us, right? Arjuna had to make the effort on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, right? The gopis make efforts in their endeavors to please Krishna. All the Leela, all the pastimes of Vrindavan, everybody is endeavoring, right? Well, I've just been listening to the pastime of the Gundicha Marjana, the cleansing of the Gunjita temple from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And there, Mahaprabhu is teaching this process of anartha nivriti, this stage of bhajana kriya, and then removing the anarthas, and it takes place in the form of cleansing the temple. The temple where Lord Jagannath is going to reside for many days after the first stage of the Rath Yatra parade. It's like our heart. We want the Lord to come into our heart. They wanted the Lord to reside in this temple. They had to make it spotless. And so Mahaprabhu is teaching his devotees how to clean the gross things like the sticks and the leaves and the larger stones, and then gradually small pebbles and finer refuse, finally just dust, and washing the walls and the ceiling, and ultimately Mahaprabhu getting down on the floor and any stains on the floor, cleaning with his own cloth, his own uttariya, right? And that's what we have to do. And he was challenging the devotees there. And he would have them all show their piles of dirt. And the ones that had less, he would chastise them by praising them. Oh, you've done so well. Look at you, better than anyone. But when they look around and see everyone else's effort, they realize, oh, I'm slack. But Mahaprabhu so lovingly showed that to them that they renewed their efforts, right? And worked even harder. And all of them together could not equal the work of Mahaprabhu. His pile was bigger than everybody else's combined, right? So our effort has to be there. Our heart has to become completely cleansed to be a fitting place for Radha and Krishna, right? Paramatma will stay with us in any body, in any condition, but as a witness, right? And sometimes give a little encouragement, right? But we can't talk to Paramatma. But if we can clean our heart, make the effort, then Mahaprabhu will help us as he helped everyone there. And so our resolve has to be backed by our effort. And that's the hardest thing. It's easy to make vows and resolve. I do that all the time. But to actually put it into practice and then find oneself disengaged and distracted and then going, oh God, oh Gurudev, oh Prabhupada, oh Nityananda, help me. So then we go to Taranga Rangini, delighting in the mundane benefits afforded by bhakti. Ooh, this is very dangerous, right? So next, the stage of Taranga Rangini is described. Bhakti's nature is such that everyone naturally becomes attracted to that person in whom she appears. Even the thoughtful and wise personalities of ancient times opined, that means offered their opinion, Jananuraga Prabhava Hisampad. The influence that comes from being the object of people's affection is certainly a wealth. The influence that comes from being the object of people's affection is certainly a wealth, a form of wealth, right? Right, to be able to control and boss people just by your charisma or position or something, status. This is what Raghunath Das warned us about. Pratishta is reputation, fame, and all. Pratishdasha is a desire for that. So, yet, the wealth, worship, fame, and other such prosperity one attains upon the awakening of bhakti are in truth parasitic creepers, upashakas, that cover the wish-fulfilling vine of pure devotion. These upashakas have been described as waves, taranga, in the great ocean of bhakti. At this stage in the sadhak's practice of devotion, he frolics, ranga, in the waves of worship, fame, and so forth. For this reason, it has been called Taranga Rangini, or frolicking in the waves. So that's the last verse that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives in this second chapter, about this chapter of Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, and Bhajana Kriya. Now, let's listen to this commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. I wonder if different ideas come into your head when you hear this. Examples of others that you see being swallowed by the things that are offered to one, or in your own life. So, Just as water by nature flows downward, people's affection naturally flows toward a devotee. Those who engage in one-pointed devotion to Sri Hari, the soul of all souls, satisfy the whole creation by their devotional worship. The Padma Purana confirms this. Yenat chito haristena tarpi tani jagatyapi rajanti jantavastatra jangama stavara api. All inhabitants of the world are satisfied with the person who has worshipped Sri Bhagavan. All moving and non-moving entities are attracted to him. End quote. The result of such attraction is that they begin to honor and worship the devotee. Not only that, but the benefit of all three types of happiness resulting from mundane enjoyment, spiritual bliss, and mystic powers automatically manifests for him. So one who's a worshiper of the Lord, of Bhagavan, is automatically going to attract followers, fame, praise, wealth, right? And even in lesser religions, less developed religious practice, people that can proclaim themselves to be worshipers may also attract great wealth and followers and fame. And we see this phenomena all over the world, but living in America, we see it in a very special way, where people become televangelists, where it used to be that evangelists would travel around the country in a little car or truck and put up a tent and in a small town, and for a week, just have a big presentation and excite people and try to inspire their devotion. And there were sincere ones doing their best, and then there were insincere ones. Both of them attracted followers, both of them attracted wealth, but how they used it, then that's another thing. And in bhakti, it's the same. That you find that, in our own lifetimes, we've seen that people that practice bhakti, even for a few years, may be elevated with a title and a position, and then they get special treatment, and then they get honored, and they may even go on after the disappearance of their guru to become gurus themselves. And then the worship comes really strong. And that is so difficult. We're trying to come to a position where we're the sevaks, where we're the worshipers of Guru and the Vaishnavas. And when you become the object and all the Vaishnavas are worshiping you, it can overwhelm you. And most people do get overwhelmed because they take that position prematurely. And unfortunately, you see all the time now stories of this one or that one. Oh, they were worshipped so much, but what's happened? Oh, they've accumulated wealth, they have houses, they have followers, they have illicit relationships with ladies, sometimes even their disciples. Terrible, terrible situation. So this is Taranga Rangini. And Sri Rupa Goswami has described this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. But, even less than that in your own life. Okay, I'm not a guru, I'm not taking followers, but hey, you might get a lot of money doing this or doing that, right? How are you using it? Are you living renounced and simple, or are you surrounding yourself with the opulences of an ordinary life? Lots of cars, and things that you enjoy, whatever it is. People have all kinds of enjoyment, right? Some people like to play music, some people like to ride motorcycles, some people, like to, I could go on unlimitedly, but what is your life like? And again, it may be that living in an opulent situation, one could be renounced. There's a story of Maharaj Yudhishthira and Krishna, Sri Krishna speaking together, and Krishna says, I want to give you a boon. And Yudhishthira Maharaj says, all right, then I want to be the ruler of the world with, unlimited wealth. And Krishna laughs and said, what? You're like a Raja Rishi. You're like more like a rishi than a raja, right? You've never wanted anything. Why are you asking for this? He thought it was so humorous. Because Yudhishthir, he's one of the three people called Haridas in the Bhagavatam, Yudhishthir, Uddhava, and Giriraj. Great, great devotee. And he said, well, that's because most of your devotees are so renounced, they live so simply, that ordinary people that still have attachments, they don't want to take up bhakti. They feel that they'll lose everything and they'll become street beggars or living in some hovel. I want to show them that if they do bhakti, they can also be prosperous. Even if, only at the beginning, give them some encouragement. So Krishna understanding that motive. All right. So there are devotees of all different levels of wealth, and but what is the consciousness behind it, right? If you get overwhelmed by it and you're not using it all for Krishna's service, then you're going to get derailed. So, and this is also what he's talking about. It's also Mahaprabhu was telling this to Rupa Goswami in the 19th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, about the bhakti creeper. When it grows, at the same time, just like in a field, along with the nourishing creeper may come different weeds and other plants that look like the creeper, but they're not. And they actually take the nourishment from the creeper and they can actually choke it off. So a careful farmer will remove these weeds. And this is one of the worst weeds. So, Srila Rupa Goswami has described this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Siddhaya paramascharya bhuktir muktish shashvati nityam cha paramanando bhavad govinda bhaktita. Those who engage in devotional service to Sri Govinda easily attain astonishing mystic powers, such as anima, the power to become smaller than the smallest. In other words, they attain material happiness, the happiness of liberation and eternal spiritual happiness. These things come, they throw themselves at the feet of powerful devotees. Please let me serve you. Let me give you what I have. But pure devotees want nothing apart from loving devotional service to Sri Krishna. They do not want any happiness related to wealth, worship, and fame, material enjoyment, liberation, mystic powers, or personal happiness, for all such things are unfavorable for bhakti. Wealth, worship, and fame are the parasitic creepers, upashakas, of the wish-fulfilling vine of pure devotion. Irrigated by the water of the sadhak's hearing and chanting, these upashakas flourish, overgrow the vine of pure devotion, and stifle it, preventing it from growing. Therefore, it is the sadhak's duty to cut these upashakas beforehand. In his instructions to Srila Rupa Goswami, Srimad Mahaprabhu had said, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, 158 to 161. Kintu jari lata sange ute upashaka bhukti mukti vancha jato asankhya taraleka nisidha chara kuntinati jiva hingsana labha puja pratishtari jato upashagana shekha jalapaya upashaka barijai stabhoya mula staka baditena paya Pratamei upasaka koraye chedana tabe mula shakabadhi jaya vrindavana. Sometimes the parasitic creepers of desire for enjoyment or liberation sprout alongside the creeper of devotion. These parasitic creepers are unlimited. They include forbidden behavior, duplicity, violence to other living entities, and the desire for wealth, fame, and adoration. They drink up all the water of the sadhak's hearing and chanting. In this way, they are nourished and flourish, while the growth of the bhakti lata is curtailed. An intelligent devotee must uproot a parasitic creeper as soon as he spots it. so the original vine of devotion can grow and reach the lotus feet of Sri Krishna in Vrindavan. That's Mahaprabhu speaking to Rupa Goswami. So, Srila Narayan Maharaj goes on, these parasitic creepers have also been described as waves in the vast ocean of bhakti. In the stage of unsteady devotional service, anishtata bhajana kriya, the devotee experiences his activities of devotion as frolicking in these waves. In other words, he takes pleasure in the attainment of praise, worship, and wealth, which are the result of his devotional activities. Consequently, these results are formidable anarthas, or unwanted desires that act as obstacles to devotion. This stage of the sadhaka is called Taranga Rangini. Within the third shower, the topic of anarthas arising from bhakti will be discussed. And the thing about these desires and this stage, because we're not mature in our bhakti, and we've not actually tasted real bhakti ras, goes back to that original point made, that if you've actually tasted bhakti ras, then these things appear as obvious imposters, counterfeit pleasures, right? Not the real thing. But if you're immature, you're going to take these as the blessings of the Lord. Oh, the Lord's blessed me. He's given me so much wealth because I am a great devotee. And, therefore, I've been given this facility. I have this intellect. I have this intelligence. I'm so learned. This is proof that I have the favor of the Lord upon me, right? And, there was whole philosophy in Christianity, and it's still there in different sects, where the degree of your wealth and accumulation, a direct sign of the mercy of God. The Lord has bestowed so many blessings upon us. And these counterfeit teachers, these counterfeit televangelists, will entice ignorant and greedy people that if these are the things you want, then you have to sacrifice to the Lord. Give to the Lord and he will give back to you. Which, is true, but Krishna says, Ye yatam mam prapadyante tangstadaiva bhajamyaham. As you surrender to me, I reward you accordingly. So, in the highest stage, that means in whatever rasa that you have for me, and you want to serve me in that way, or in whatever form that I am in, like if I'm Lord Narayan, or if I'm Dwarkadish Krishna, or I'm Vamandev, or Sita Ram, or Krishna in Vrindavan, I will reciprocate with you according to your desire to serve. And on a lesser stage, it means as we're performing our bhajan to reach our perfected stage, according to our efforts, he'll assist and reward us. Even more, Srila Prabhupada used to say, if you take one step towards Krishna, he'll take 10 steps to you. Right? So, but if you just want mundane things and you're chanting for them, then that's Namaparad, right? And you may get those mundane things. Namaparad can give you all this mundane stuff, but it will never give you Krishna. The only way that Namaparad evolves into Namabhas is that if one, with an appropriate intention. Oh, I'm so degraded, I'm so fallen, but I've heard this proper instruction. I know what real Nam is. I know what the real goal of life is, but I'm completely flooded with offense and mundane desire. But I'm going to stay in good association and I'm going to chant and chant. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes later on in this book that the Namaparadi who chants with that intention, by always chanting, they remove themselves from the environment which encourages aparad, from the environment and the association of persons who are inclined in that inappropriate way. And the soul, just like a clear crystal, takes on the qualities of wherever and whomever they're associating with. So if you, with determination, remove yourself from bad association and chant and pray that I am an aparadi, but I'm going to keep chanting, and I want to chant pure name name that will give you joy when you hear it chanted from my lips. This is what I want. I want to give joy like a little baby when the parents first hear them talk. It gives them so much pleasure when they can say real words, not just baby gibberish. Blah, 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 blah. You know, that, okay, they're trying. But when they actually say mama, papa, and in those words, the relationship is spoken and felt, then that's the beginning of real joy for the child and the parent, right? So when Krishna sees us trying, in the beginning we just chanting, but it's blah, 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 rik, shik, shram, rah, rah, rah. No mood, no knowledge, no, higher desire. But by hearing and associating properly, that will come, and then we can move beyond that aparad. Chant, chant, chant. But know what aparad is. And when you're practicing bhakti and all this stuff comes, you only have one opportunity. There's two ways to deal with it. One is to walk away from it completely. Stay far away. The other is under guidance, and not, when I say guidance, not your whim, I'll use this for Krishna Seva. Usually, though, it's some for me and some for Krishna, right? And you can easily get overwhelmed and get angry. Oh, these devotees, they're not acknowledging me and my gifts. I'm going to go away and do something else. Right? There's a story, true story. There was a lottery being held, and an Indian devotee, right? And they have a long tradition of worshiping Krishna through Varnashram, right? Using the bhakti as a means to increase their wealth and happiness in this world. God's our order supplier. Most people in this world think like that. So there's a big lottery, and this Indian was praying and praying, oh my Lord, please, give me this lottery. If I win this scratch off, I'll give you half. And then, I will build a nice temple, this and that, And the scratch off he wanted was $1 million, right? Or maybe today it would be updated a little bit, Let's just say, it costs a little bit more to build a temple. But let's just go with that, 1 million. Oh, Lord, please give me this. I'll give you half. Anyway, day comes, he goes after praying and praying, takes that ticket, scratches it off, and it's 500,000. And he looks at it and he goes, oh, my Lord, you're so tricky. You didn't trust that I would give you your half, so you took it in advance. The mind is so tricky. Material desires are so tricky. So if you get all this, it's a very rare person that can use it all for Krishna. Who is the example, ultimate example? Raghunath Das. He walked away from wealth, like Lord Indra, they said. So wealthy. Yudhishthira and his brothers, when the war was over and the succession was clear, even though they were strong and healthy, they walked away. Bharat Maharaj was youthful, had young children, wife, he walked away. Right? That's very profound to be able to do that. There's a story of Gaur Govinda Maharaj, actually. If you want to understand an example of real faith, he had 7 children with his wife, and he was a teacher, and a modest salary, was a teacher, and in his 50s, I guess early 50s, because he was raised in such a devotional environment, he left, he walked away, and he began to wander around India looking for his guru. He was raised in Orissa in a Gaudiya devotional environment, and he was looking for that guru who could give me that. And he wandered, and he, finally came to Vrindavan, met Srila Prabhupada, and very quickly took sannyas. Shortly after that, a government agent came to him and said, oh, your wife and children are living in poverty, but you have a government pension. So if you sign this release, they can get the pension. And he said, I have no wife and children. I'm a sannyasi. And they said, yes, we know that, but you can sign this and then they can get the money. But his sense of identity was so strong that I have no wife, I have no children. Or, like we hear in the Bhagavatam, or at Srivas Pandit's house when his son was revived, which mother, which father? I've had so many. It's all illusion. And he wouldn't sign it. He would not sign it. He said, oh, Krishna's the maintainer of everyone, not this pension. He'll take care of them. Shortly thereafter, a young Vaishnav from a wealthy family met the family of Gaur Govinda Maharaj and found out the eldest daughter was the daughter of this great, great Vaishnava. He was, I guess, maybe a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I don't know. Can't remember. But he said, oh, it would be a great honor for me to be able to marry such a great Vaishnavi. And so he married her, and because he was wealthy, he took care of the whole family. Right? So that kind of mentality, that's quite profound. And, that can work. When we were very young, all of my godbrothers and godsisters, they gave up everything in their youth. Anywhere from 16 to mid-20s, they just renounced everything. People, parents, friends were aghast. You can't just walk away, give up your education, your future for this. And they walked away and didn't even care to visit with their parents or anything. All of us had, experiences like that. But that was the power of Srila Prabhupada to infuse in his disciples that degree of faith and to live with nothing, right? To live on the floor, no possessions, not even clothes that you owned. Just go into a box and pick out whatever's there. And you eat whatever is given to you, whatever is provided, never ate anything outside, completely dependent. Right? And extraordinary benefit were bestowed upon these devotees. Their enthusiasm, their joy, their commitment, their nishtha. But step by step, these same things appear, right? And particularly Taranga Rangini, as things went on. The opportunity for wealth and followers and fame and prestige and all these things came, and they've been coming into greater and greater degrees, and you can be swept away, right? Like these people, you see them, they're on some outcrop of rocks looking over the ocean, right? And everyone is saying, hey, be careful, there's a lot of waves in this ocean, you shouldn't stand there. Oh no, I can enjoy the beauty of the ocean here, look how beautiful. And all of a sudden a big wave comes, smashes into the rocks and washes them away into the sea. Ah, there they go. That's us. You have to be very careful. Live simple, live humble, serve, right? Be happy to serve Vaishnavas. Like we just heard about Raghunath Das not too long ago when we were hearing about the Chittadahi Mahotsav, right? The feeding of all the Vaishnavas, right, by Raghunath Das under the instruction of Nityananda Prabhu, right? And by that, Nityananda instructed all the Vaishnavas, give your blessings to Raghunath Das. And still Raghunath Das served them more, gave them money, and didn't want any recognition for it. Don't tell anyone. He gave it to Raghava Pandit and asked him to give to Nityananda Prabhu and the Vaishnavas, but don't say anything. Humble, 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 humble. Whatever they have, use in the service of the Lord. So, this ends the Piyusha Varshini Vritti, the commentary on the second shower of nectar, which describes the different types of bhajana kriya, having delineated the first three stages of bhakti, Shraddha, Sadhusanga, and Bhajana Kriya in sequence. So there we go. We've had a very wonderful opportunity here with this second chapter. Okay, so we'll stop here, offering obeisance to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, all of our Guru Parampara, and all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, Hari Bol, Hari